Hello everybody, thanks for joining me today. We are going to be flying this wonderful Ford tri-motor that was just released today. You guys will probably be watching this tomorrow, which is June 24th, 2023. The reason why those dates are important is because from June 23rd through June 30th, you can get this famous flyer for free. So if you're watching this right now and it is within those dates, get on the marketplace and pick it up right away. I think otherwise it's going to be around 15 bucks, which is still not a bad price for such a cool aircraft. Now, this was developed by Aeroplane Heaven. The only aircraft that I have of theirs is their Cessna 140, which I do like. There's some weird things that go along with the avionics for that one, but it hasn't been updated in forever, and they've done a much better job in this aircraft. Now, this also has a very cool Ford pickup here, loading up the baggage, and this aircraft actually shares a lot of parts from the Ford Model T, which is crazy. Even the quote yoke is actually a steering wheel from the Model T. The brakes are from a Model T, and they are definitely underpowered for an aircraft of this size. Now, this was a very successful aircraft. There was 199 of them built. 100 different airlines used it, which is incredible to think about. It has a range of about, I think, 550, 560 miles, which was impressive for this golden age of aircraft. And you have these three 300 horsepower, I think it's 9-piston radial engines on the front to get this thing moving along. It's no speed demon, but it definitely has a very cool look. And the one thing that I'm just going to say right now is I wish the sounds were a little better. And also there's another thing I want to talk about with the sounds once we get inside the cockpit. Speaking of the cockpit, let's go ahead and jump on in. All right, so we are at, I'm probably going to say it wrong, but Le Bourget, France, which has an amazing museum here. I've got the traffic turned off just because I didn't want us stuck behind a A380 while we were taxiing out and holding us up while we're making the video. So we're going to go from cold and dark. We're going to be doing a little bit of VOR navigation, but we're going to be using a different panel here because I want to go over the Gyro Pilot, which is not an autopilot, but it sometimes gets used interchangeably terminology wise. So you have three different panels. You have this one here, and then you have this one here with modern avionics with a 530-430 combo, which to me I think spoils the aircraft, but each to their own. And then you have this one, which has this Gyro Pilot in the middle, and we're going to go over on how to use that. And we're also going to go over how to fire this thing up, because I'm sure some people have a hard time getting these to actually spark up and go. So we're going to get these wonderful steering wheels out of the way so we can have a better look at things. So step one, we're going to go through and just pop on our battery. We're going to make sure that our mixture is actually full open and that our throttle is cracked open just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and before we go any further, these guys are your panel lights. I think those are only available with this panel. And then essentially those are your nav lights. We have a cabin light and then you have your landing lights there. These guys are solenoids, or you can almost think of them as like a mesh switch if you're familiar with how these sort of like radial engines of this period started. You have your magnetos here. Your master ignition is there. Behind us, we have our fuel valves left and right. And then there's one other fuel valve down here that you can turn off, and off is sort of pointing in to the middle of the cockpit, which would turn off the fuel to the center engine. Now you also have your primer over here, which is important for the startup procedure. The way this works is that you have this sort of like lock on it there. And then this is actually a lock as well that sort of like twists open. So what we want to do is we're going to start up our left engine first. Now you're going to prime that 4 times. Then down on the bottom here, these are your starters for each engine. So left engine, center, and right. So we're going to prime it 4 times. We're going to go ahead and click on the starter, wait 10 seconds, and then engage the solenoid. Once we have the solenoid engaged, we're going to come over to the left engine magnetos and we're going to turn it to both, and then fingers crossed, hopefully we get a good start. So let's go ahead and put that into practice. So we're going to do 4 pumps on the primer. We're going to come on down to the starter here, click on that, and I just like to watch the second hand here. I'm going to click on through, and then we can go ahead and turn that over. And then come over to both. And there we go. We've got a good start. Now this is the one thing that I wanted to talk about with the noise before we go over the other engines, is that you can't open the windows, but it does not change the sound that you're hearing. This is the same issue that is with the Cessna 140. I'm not sure what Aeroplane Heaven does with their flight, sort of their development of it to not have a change there, but it doesn't. So anyways, let's move on to, I'm going to do engine number 3 next. So we're going to come all the way over to the right engine, and same process. We're going to pump that 1, 2, 3, 4 times. Come on down, hit the starter, have a look at the second hand. Then we can go ahead and turn on the mesh, or the solenoid I should say, and rotate over to both. And hopefully it fires up. There it goes. So 2 good fires. Lastly, we'll rotate this up to the center engine, do 4 pumps. Come on down to our starter. Watch the second hand. Go ahead and pop that on. Rotate over both. Did I get it? I did. Yay. All right. Three good fire ups there, and we just want to get a little bit of throttle in between 600 and 800 RPMs to let this sort of the pressures and temperatures come up. Down here you have your temps and your pressure there. These are our fuel gauge. We have plenty of fuel. We're just going to be doing a kind of a fun flight to show how this works and also how you can use navigation in here. So our first, this is a cool way of that they implemented modern comm stack that still looks sort of age appropriate. They did this because back then they wouldn't have had these sort of navigation or comm equipment inside the aircraft, but this looks at home here. So I think it's 11865 is our first one. I might have to double check on some charts here in a minute. 118. 10865. See, now I've got to double check my charts here. Hold on 1 second here. (10825). I was way off. All right, so let's go back down here. 10825. 10825. And this is your little swap buttons. You can swap that into place. And might as well get the next one in as well, which is going to be 1565. All right, so let's get that tuned in here. All right, that's all we needed to do. We're good. We got our lights on. Everything is looking good. I don't think I turned off our static elements there. Let me make sure that the door is shut here. We could jump to the outside. And we can have a little listen as well. All right, so we're going to take off and we're going to go check out the Eiffel Tower, and then we're going to fly on our VOR and take that over to the next VOR, and then we're gonna land in, I think it's Chartres is how you would pronounce it. Again, I'm not quite sure, but that's what I'm going with. So we're gonna go ahead and pop off our parking brake, and we can get this thing taxiing. Now, it taxis nicely. The one thing that I will say is do not rely on those brakes for any sort of like differential power, because they definitely do not do a lot. Like, that's full left brake right now. it didn't even turn the aircraft. So, and you can see, actually, that's kind of clever how they do the brake. Didn't notice that. So, yeah, it definitely does not really help with any differential steering by using your brakes. You really have to rely on your rudder inputs. So we're just going to taxi on down, and I'll rejoin with you guys once we're on the runway. Alright, so as we roll onto the runway here, I'm just going to go ahead and pop on our landing lights. Now, for rotation on this is going to be roughly between 70 and 80. The tail does come up very quickly, which is nice. And it does actually have some really good rudder authority as we're making our way down the runway. Now, the way you want to take this off is really just letting it sort of like lift off. There's not a lot of backwards pressure that you should apply, just because this is, you know, really more of a straight-winged aircraft, and they just sort of need to take off and build up speed. Our speed for our climb is going to be about 100 miles an hour, and we'll continue that up to about 2,000 feet. Anytime you're applying those brakes, pull back on that yoke just so that way you don't get a huge tail lift on there, and it will stop your nose from dipping. We're also going to go through and talk about the Gyro Pilot here, but first we need to get that aligned. So what we want to do is just get everything to match up there. That looks about right. So this, think of this as your heading mode. This is going to be how steep of a bank you're going to do if you make a big adjustment on there, and this is for your pitch. This is your sort of on and off button here. So we're going to go ahead and just get on in the air. Let me recenter my head tracker here. That looks a bit better. All right, so we're going to go ahead and bring it up to full throttle. Ease it on in. Go ahead and release the brakes. Just try and stay on that center line. Like I said, that tail does come up quick. There we go. There's 60. There's 70. And there's 80. And we can just really let it just float off that tarmac. And then you don't want to keep pulling back, because you want it to build up that airspeed. So you just want to watch your climb rate and that airspeed. So we're just passing 100 right there. And we're going to start making a turn over to the south. And now we can start to really trim out for our climb. For that first little bit there, you don't want to, like, you know, yank back and try and get that climb up there. Just let it drift up and build up that airspeed. You can see right now I'm trimming this out for 100 miles an hour for our climb. We're going to head over into downtown Paris and check out the Eiffel Tower. We're just coming up to 1,000 feet already. And what I'll do is I'm going to engage that Gyro Pilot here just so we can demonstrate on how that works pretty quickly. So what you want to do first is kind of get yourself into level flight. I'm going to bring back this power. And then you want to get that lined up. I lined it up earlier to get it all the way over there. So what you do is once you engage it, which is going to be with this button here, it's going to, this is like your heading mode. So we'll go ahead and click it on, and it's going to hold your pitch as well. Now, if you make small adjustments, so let me spot the Eiffel Tower here. There it is. So if you make small adjustments, it's just going to use your rudder and kind of yaw your way over there. So like if we just do a little bit, you can see how it just kind of like yaws, does it very uncoordinated turn. And that's it's designed to do it that way. It's not great, but that's the way it does it. Now, say we need to make a big turn. So we just rotate this over a whole bunch. It'll start to yaw, and then it'll be like, no, you're making too much of a turn. That's when you come over to your aileron knob, and you can set the bank angle. So we come over here, and it will start banking over until it gets to what we set on here. Now we want to actually come back over, though, because we want to go over to the Eiffel Tower, which is there. So we can just make some small adjustments here and turn our ailerons over to match. Now our pitch, you can see we're still climbing. What you want to do is this and watch your vertical speed. And you just rotate that, and if you want to level off, you just have it go to 0. And it takes a minute, it bobbles around, and it's not precise by any means. So you do have to keep an eye on things, so I'm going to bring it up a little bit there. For some reason this clicks over a lot, but it doesn't always reflect like how many notches that you actually click on there. So it's a little interesting to see it clicking around like that, which I don't know if that's a bug or if that's just the way it works. I'm going to bring a little power back in here. So we're still climbing a little bit here. We're kind of bobbling around with that wind. There's the Eiffel Tower. Just turn it over a little bit. Have a funny little yawing turn there. Bring that down one more click. There we go. So we'll fly along until we get close to the Eiffel Tower. But that's how this works. It's really making sure that you have the heading aligned before you turn it on. Then you're going to engage it. Small adjustments, just use your rudder. Big adjustments won't seem like it's doing anything because you have to set the bank angle. And then this is for your pitch, which you set with your vertical speed here. Now, cruise settings on this, I like to be right around just a little bit below 1800 RPM, so we're going a little quick right now. But you want to be around 110, 115. Now this is with the new city update for Paris, and you can see how wonderful of a job they did with this. It looks absolutely fantastic everywhere you look. And, of course, we have to fly over the Eiffel Tower. Turn us over a little bit, though, just so we can fly past it. Also, while we're going over there, you can see that we've already picked up that VOR, and I'll explain how that works in just a moment. Alright, so just to demonstrate how the VOR works on here, this red needle is basically pointing directly at it. Now, you're going to want to use your heading mode in order to get pretty much on course. There's no course dial for you to do it. You have to use your heading mode. So we're looking, if we turn over to 240, we should start to catch it up a little bit. Actually, I'm probably going to go to 250. And you'll notice that I get over there, and then we're going to have to go ahead and put in our bank. And we'll start turning over to fly towards the VOR. And hopefully, once that balances out, see, we're leveling out, and that's pretty much pointing directly ahead. We can come back a little bit. I went a little far, so we're looking at roughly right around 240 is going to be where we need to be. And that's all you need to do. And it's actually fairly accurate. It'll get very sensitive as you get closer, just like any other VOR. And then it'll spin around to the other direction. And then we're going to swap to our next VOR and do the same thing to head towards that. And then go ahead and head ourselves down to Chartres Airport. So we're going to continue flying along. Well, we're about 2,000 feet. We're getting bobbled around a little bit with the wind, but overall everything is configured very well. We're doing 110. We could bring in a little bit of throttle if we wanted to, get closer to 115. But, you know, we're happy right here. Fuel is good. Pressure is good. Oh, you know what? One thing I just noticed I did not do. I did not pop on our generator. That is very bad of me. So make sure after you start the engines, you pop on your generator. Because I just looked down and saw that our amps were almost at zero, if not at zero. So I don't know if the lights went off then or not, but make sure you have your generator turned on. All right, we'll continue flying, and I'm just going to show you guys when we cross over the VOR, and then we'll come into land. All right, that needle's starting to get a little twitchy on me, so I'm thinking we're right there. As soon as that thing comes around all the way, we know that we have gone over it. Usually you can see them on the ground, but I am not spotting it. It's just like a little round building with some sort of stuff around it. So it's starting to get a little more sensitive. We're just going to turn over to 206 once we pass it. There it goes. And we can go ahead and now turn this over to 206. And notice that was a big change, so we have to use this to get us there to set our bank angle. If we were just using a small change, it would have just done it with our rudder, but because it was more than a couple of degrees, it really wanted to tell us how to get there. So that's part of remembering how to use this. And again, I wasn't paying attention to the altitude, and we climbed up. So I definitely don't want to be doing it at this point. If anything, I want to be coming down a little bit. Now, the other thing I wanted to mention was that if this bottom part becomes uncoordinated or is off, so this is a gyro which has gyro drift. If you have that enabled on your settings, then you're probably going to be familiar with what I'm talking about. If you don't have it on there, then sometimes it can happen, or you can mess up by turning this dial here. Essentially what you want to make sure, and what gyro drift is that this drifts with time. And in real world flying, you need to align your gyro with your compass about every 10 to 15 minutes to make sure it's accurate. So, you know, you would come up and have a look and be like, okay, we're, you know, at about 206 right now, which is what I kind of like set us to. But say it was out of whack, right? It's going to mess with your auto, your heading bug, because it's going to be matching you up and it's not going to align right anymore. So now you can see this is saying 210 and we're flying more like 205. So that can get you off course very quickly. So you want to make sure that that is actually aligned. And if you want to, you can hit the shortcut key D for Delta, and that will align it. For some reason, this knob will start spinning like crazy sometimes. And I don't know why, but it'll do that. So you can see now that we've got things back aligned, it's going to continue on that course. Now we're going to want to start keeping an eye out for the runway. It's not too far away. It's up in this area over here. And we'll just kind of continue descending on down about 500 feet a minute right now, just to get us down to about 1,500 feet, because the airport elevation is right around 500. I'm thinking we're going to have kind of a northwesterly wind, but we'll fly over the airport first to check the windsock, and then we will most likely do a left traffic pattern and come on in. So we'll touch base when we're checking out that windsock and then when we're coming in final. All right, so using that VOR, you can see that we're at that 206-ish heading, and it's pointing directly back at it, and look what's right in front of us. Here's the airport. So everything lines up and works out very, very well using this sort of primitive navigation. And I want to be able to get a look at the windsock here. I'm pretty sure there's one about midfield. There it is. Oh yeah, we've got looks like a northwest wind. So I'm going to go ahead and actually disengage the gyro now. And you do that just by clicking on there, and we're at about 1,200 feet right now, which is a little low, but I'm going to go ahead and bring back that power. And we're just going to do sort of enter a left base here. Get our speeds under control. And let's see how this does with a crosswind, because it is a tail dragger and they can be tricky when landing with any sort of crosswind. You want your approach speed to be around like 80, 90 to begin with, down to that sort of like 70, 65, and then touchdown, 45, 50-ish. Main wheels first, and let that tail come down. Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, these brakes do not do much. So you need more runway than you think in order to get this thing to stop. Now, this does have a exit about halfway down the runway, but I have found that those mid spots, depending on where you touch down, are tricky to get to when it comes to this aircraft. Just kind of keeping an eye on things here. Alright, we're going to go ahead and just turn on over. Now, there are no flaps. You don't have to worry about any of that. You're just going to be using your pitch and your throttle in order to control your speed. Which, it can be a little tricky to get it to slow down if you're not thinking ahead. And I'm a little high right now, so that's kind of eating my own words right now because I got to drop altitude, but I don't want my airspeed to get out of control, which it's going to. So I prefer to try and burn that speed off and get that nose back up, so that way we can, sorry, burn that elevation off and then get the nose back up, so that way I can get the speed under control. There we go, that's better. There's 80. $75. We're still high. So you're just gonna hover over that runway and just kind of let it float on down. We're definitely going too fast. Eating my own words there. Still not too bad. Definitely going fast though. I'm going to bring that tail down. And put on those brakes. Can we stop in time? We did it. Oh man. So like just, that's what I'm saying. That was full brakes. But I definitely landed way too far down the runway and with way too much speed. It takes practice. But there you go. Shutdown on this is, you know, pretty straightforward of just, you know, turning off electronics and popping back the mixture and you're good to go. Overall, I'd say number one, definitely if you are in the week of the 23rd through the 30th of June, just go download it. It's free. If you missed out and it is at, I think it's like 14, 15 bucks US dollars, then I would say it's probably still worth picking up if you like this era of aircraft. This is a very cool plane. I've had a lot of fun flying it, especially with this panel. The other panels, this one I probably won't ever use. This one I might use just because it is fun to hand fly as well. So that's it from me. Until next time, take care.